which is the sales and tradings. And for the first few years was basically rotating across different desks, trading execution related managed team, and later transitioning into more of a product management role, and really got into the implementation rollouts of systems and projects. And also that was when I started looking into different technologies for financial services, and blockchain was just starting to picking up a lot of momentum. That was 2016. And as I sort of went through the journey of becoming a product manager, I really wanted to be in a different type of organization to drive initiatives, and the banks were a bit slow for me, in my opinion. And I sort of so I started exploring in 2018. I officially got into the blockchain space, working at Consensus, which is, some of you might have heard of the company. It's a software company mainly focusing on building and providing tools and platforms built on Ethereum, which is one of the leading layer 1 protocol. And I think it's probably the largest protocol for decentralized finance applications and platforms. So I spent a few years there and launched a platform that was focusing on tokenizing assets, and then also transitioned to a more of a strategic initiative position, working with the chief of staff and the corporate strategy team, shaping ways we can bring the core offerings to the market. So worked with all of the core offering and core product teams. And 2020 took another opportunity to lead the build out of business development at the company called Digital Asset. So Digital Asset is a creator of Demo, which is a smart contract platform, infrastructure platform for different protocols, the different databases, including clouds and all that. So really enjoyed that short year and a half, and then most recently joined my current company called IOV Labs, which stands for Internet of Value. It's a company founded by a team of brilliant technologists based out of Argentina, but it's very much global and decentralized. The key proposition there is to build useful business cases on top of the Bitcoin network. So not really putting utilities and functionalities on the network, which is not a small effort. So a lot of technology and process are being built out right now, and we've launched with quite a few projects like Sovereign and Money on Chain and Tropicus. And the key target markets are in emerging markets. So there are 7 countries in Latin America, Asia we mainly focused on, but as the nature of blockchain, you can not really carve out a few markets and just focus on that. So we've been actually working with a lot of projects outside of that, those 7 countries, and mainly in Europe and North America. We see a lot of interest, both from builders but also from institutional investors and capital markets. So that's in a nutshell. I'm currently leading the commercial group that governs all the activities from anywhere from partnerships, biz dev, economic growth, investments, to developer experience, and so on. So Patrick, back to you. That's a little
Yes,
bit.
okay. But before I'm sure Liren and Kirin and a bunch of other people that have questions for you. But before I let them speak and actually present some of the things that they've done, which I think you may find of interest. So, and that's a question we often ask to the guests, is some of the stuff that you've learned in the program. How did you get to what aspect of the program, I guess, is it that you use, because you didn't do blockchain then in the program, unlike currently. What aspect of the program was most useful to you in what you're doing today?
Yeah, so So just to clarify, this is an audience from the same program that I participated in, or a variety? The same. Okay.
It's called
Well,
analytical finance.
okay.
It's called
So
financial engineering. Yes.
perfect. So I think a lot of classes, no matter how practical or academic, I think at the end of the day, it was a way for me to just kind of train my brain a little bit and just think and to learn different new things. And I remember there were a few courses around industrial engineering, optimization, and the process design, which became quite useful and applicable on a variety of roles that I took after I started working. So just think about processes from a high level, what would make most sense, and be able to challenge the existing processes and redesign that process. I found it very, very helpful. You know, think about what I'm working on now. A lot of it is about programmability of the digital assets, programmability of an asset, and securities and real world properties and stuff like that. So I think I, fundamentally still use some of the knowledge I learned back in the days.
Great. Yaron, do you mind, and Kirin, providing a little bit of a background in terms of you've done a DeFi a project with the Ethernet Lab, actually, Ethereum. Maybe you could give a little bit of a feel for what you guys did and what you found out in your project.
Sure, yeah. I can start first.
Okay, go ahead.
So basically there were 3 team members on our team, and the project that I was mainly involved in basically using the GraphQL protocol like on Uniswap, and try to query data from there and visualize the data using Dash and Plotly on Python. So that's a lot of work. It involves more of the programming part of that. But before that, we also, did a lot of research on different, AMMs and DeFi applications as well. And I'll let Kirin talk about that as well.
Yeah, so I was mainly researching for the project. In the beginning, we initially had 2 stages. The first is to work on the historical data, which Iran was able to queue from the GraphQL, and then we move on to live data. And with the end goal is to learn about front-running feasibility, because the purpose of the purpose of investigating the data was eventually locate large accounts, and we look for 1, arbitrage, and 2, if there's any other opportunity that's similar to arbitrage that we could either front run or use other methods to take advantage of. And it was a lot of research since DeFi was a pretty deep rabbit hole. And I think eventually we concluded it wasn't really feasible to front run. In order to do that, you need to write a very efficient algorithm, and also, most importantly, you need a very low latency search panel and access to high computational power. Basically, asking a partnership with a miner to initially front run. And also,
yeah, sorry, but just very interesting.
Go ahead.
And I'm sorry for cutting you off in the middle. I'll let you finish in a second. Do you see that conclusion may change or alter, given the transition of consensus protocol on Ethereum going from proof of work to proof of stake, or this still going to be the same outcome?
I think it will change a little bit, but in general, the arbitrage opportunity or this issue of minor extraction values will always be there, as long as there this loophole. I think it's intentionally designed for Ethereum workspace by the developers, and in a way it kind of balances out. It does like the dirty work for expanding the network. However, going into ETH2, I don't think there's a definite answer yet. I think the developer is working to reduce waste by moving into proof of work, but I don't think they have a current solution for these issue yet.
I'll chime in. Sorry about that. I think we all have different opinions on that issue, and I won't talk about my opinion. I think the consensus is that there was definitely, front running potential and everything, but it's going to become less and less discoverable, or there will be like fewer and fewer opportunities over there in that space.
Very cool project.
And before I get you to the questions, Matt, you had something quite interesting of a project. Maybe you could, because it involves blockchain somehow.
Yeah. Basically, I investigated the no arbitrage condition, covered interest rate parity in the crypto space. But it's all on exchange, so I didn't do like DeFi. I looked at specific exchanges and the futures contracts and spot contracts and the lending rates, and I investigated the condition, and then I built a trading algorithm to basically take a long short position when there's sufficient deviation to make a profit. And so I built out basically a Python trading algorithm.
So this is, I would imagine, applicable for appealing component for algorithm for centralized exchanges like the CoinDesk's, the Coinbase and the Gemini.
Yeah, I used OKEx and oh gosh, what was the other one? Now I'm blanking.
Bitcoin or Binance.
In the one that does Tether. I can't remember the exchange name now, but that's what I use for that, because they have a good limit order book for lending. So I basically looked at the condition across those two exchanges and built a trading strategy on based on it using Python. There was actually arbitrage opportunity for like a good 6-month period, in my opinion. But before that there wasn't, and then after that there wasn't. So it's not it. I don't know. It could come back, but like after I had actually built the algorithm, it basically disappeared. So it was generating a signal and just never really biting at the end of the day. So that's kind of what ended up happening.
Would you consider taking it to any of the exchanges for discussion, or what's the, I guess, like for both projects, what are the thoughts here for you guys in terms of where to go from here?
Yeah, I don't. For mine, probably not. I'm actually, I like blockchain, but I'm not actually in that space right now, so I don't think I will. I'll probably call it, let sleeping dogs lie, I guess, and leave it where it is.
Having said that, we, because he's graduating, we're putting a new team together. Hopefully they could reach to Matt, abilities and his team to take it over and take it to the next stage. In fact, we do that with a lot of projects. Jack Dean, it probably has nothing to do, with blockchain, but he's working on, sports analytics, for example, right? And so when he graduates, I want to, take it to the next stage. Anyway, I know your time is quite valuable, so maybe a question for Pei Chen. Jack?
Yeah, I do have a question.
Yeah.
I'm super interested in your position, your transfer within Goldman Sachs from the different, sales and trading desks to product management. Was more of an organic change? Like how does that happen? Or if I want to go into product management at those big firms, like what's your recommendation? I just want to hear your thoughts and experience. Thank you.
Yeah, so I think back there was sort of earlier on 2016, 15, there weren't this designated team to manage projects, or not alone products, right? The idea of change management and project management kind of happened and gradually. So for me, I saw at one point I saw the team was just struggling through a period of where there's some projects that just need someone to kind of just own it and sit in the middle of technology and the desks and all the stakeholders. And there weren't typically, there wasn't DevOps, there wasn't the change delivery. It was just a kind of very much, I think, a trading firm oriented structure. So I definitely took an initiative and proposed to shape that role for myself and as a starting point, and then later did all the product management training, and so through third parties like General Assembly and online courses, and you just have to ask for that training budget for it. But at the same time, there was a lot of projects needing to be rolled out for different reasons. One big leading driver was regulatory and the compliance requirements. There's certain things just need to be changed from a system perspective, so that's very easy to kind of get budget to do. And there's also sort of the whole transition in terms of the type of clients and customers the bank was facing. So was shifting from just institutional other broker dealers and counterparts to actually high net worth, for instance, more retail, and commercial banking was growing a lot. So what comes with that is just the demand for a better communication style. So just, from a system perspective, how do you keep up with the new generation of clients? How do you introduce tools? So for instance, Symphony was sort of rolling out. At that point, I was leading from a rollout perspective from a project side and to oversee that. And now it's its own company. It's spun out of the bank and it's its own, it's gone on its own journey. It basically, but just similar, that's just an example. There are a lot of tools, a lot of systems, a lot of modern ways of managing financial services and instruments were being explored. So for me, it was a combination of what needed to be done. There was an opportunity and I had to ask for it. And I think the management team wasn't all that familiar with any of the product management terminology or ways of doing things, like the agile, the sprints and all of that. So I had to do a little bit of heavy lifting at the beginning, but once one project rolls out in a certain way, and I think ultimately what makes if you're interested in a product management role, what makes a good product manager, I think, is a combination of the deep understanding of the product and platform you're building. So have that hands-on experience is important. So that open a lot of doors for people in the different role transition into a PM role. But then also at the same time, it just did some basic tool training and make sure you're even pick up some UX UI design skills along the way would be really helpful and just put you in a much better position. But it's a very interesting dynamic type of role as well. So and you can always go from there and go into different type of position later on.
Interesting. Really appreciate that. Thank you.
No problem.
Hi, Pei. I also have a question. So versus how do you started getting to know the blockchain, and when is the moment that you realize, oh, I can make a career from this field?
It was wasn't really like a clear kind of moment. I think it was very much a gradual process was already thinking that the current financial infrastructure is not the long-term solution. There were clear problems, and you see the systems crashing probably like every other month or so when the trading volume was spiking, and it just collapsed, right? That you couldn't handle. So there was a clear indication in my mind that there needs to be a very revolutionary and a pretty disruptive way to replace all the mainframe systems and that whatever the current banking or insurance and other legacy industries are using. So I think for me, I was searching for the next generation infrastructure, so to speak. And I think when I started, after I started my first role in the space, I really developed appreciation for creativity and innovation and just people who are able to come in from outside the financial services and think really intuitively, but effectively how to solve some of the fundamental problems, like how do you raise fund? Is IPO the solution, or it's gonna just die away over time? How do you think about decentralized governance? And so the DAO is being explored a lot, and it's actually working quite well in specific in certain scenarios. And art, the rights that musician, the creative types, what kind of rights and control they should have over their creation and their crafts. That's also being explored now through the token form, right? NFTs and stuff. So I think for me, just like every year, there was like a very clear new theme that gives me more confidence and conviction that this industry is here to stay. There's more and more adoption, and DeFi has grown from, I think, 1 billion in 2019 to now it's 20 or even more, 50 billion maybe, just in a short period of time. So there's a ton of talent going into that space, and there's a ton of I think capital inflow to support the growth of the ecosystem. So it's just one of the most exciting ecosystem out there, and one of the most fast growing industries out there.
Thanks. Jack Jill,
Great,
do you
thank
have
you.
a question? You had a question for him?
Yeah, hi Pei. I was sort of curious if you could expand a little bit more on what you're currently doing as with Bitcoin. Are you building like a layer 2 solution to make a DeFi application similar to like the Ethereum virtual machine, or virtual machine that allows you to do that? And also, I'm curious what, in your experience dealing with different blockchain companies and different funds, how do they view the sort of risks that come along with being in blockchain professionally, like the financial risks associated, because turbulent markets right now, it's a volatile asset and stuff. And so has that thinking changed at all? I'm sorry if that's a few questions, but
really, really good questions. The first one, just very briefly, I know we're kind of running out of time here. IOV is behind the RSK platform, which is a sidechain layer 2 on top of the Bitcoin network. So think about Polygon for Ethereum. That's kind of the way to think about RSK for the Bitcoin mainnet. And it's EVM compatible, meaning if you're a Solidity developer working on Ethereum projects, you can basically port your codes and deploy on RSK with very minimal. You still have to change RPC and some of the API stuff, but like very much you don't have to duplicate a big chunk of your work. So I think that's going to drive a lot of adoption and migration. And it's not all that intuitive or easy, right, to build a DeFi. DeFi has been kind of seen as this Ethereum dominant thing and phenomenon, and a ton of projects have already been built on Ethereum and other layer 2 of Ethereum, as well as you think about Avalanche, Solana, and what else is up? Cosmos being kind of the inter-blockchain ecosystem. So there are a lot of really fierce competitions out there, but the key proposition that RSK or IOV Lab is thinking is the Bitcoin has been kind of the largest market cap out there. So there's a very, very solid base layer to turn that native token into something that's useful. So one of the biggest, there are a lot of exciting use cases can be built on Bitcoin through now a scalable layer 2 platform. But I think one of the most exciting one is probably payment, P2P, peer-to-peer payments, remittances or cross-border payments, how you think about e-commerce ways of doing things. And so all the neo-banking key players would be kind of naturally the target that we're looking at, right? How to help them to go from just fiat heavy or fiat dominant way of rails to a digital crypto enabled rails, and to fulfill that fast and scalable peer-to-peer payments. And that's that means a lot of things. I think that means that you can help certain small economies to get the sovereign freedom of over inflations, and you can dodge that kind of risk. So I think it's a good thing. And second is just open up a lot of possibilities for individuals and businesses to travel across, to go beyond the borders and be able to do businesses and interact with other counterparts across the world, and without having to be tied down to the current correspondent banking and high fee transactions. So I think there are a few things. And then to your second question, financial risks. Well, there's a lot of risk, and I think it's not a very user-friendly space still. If you own your private keys to your wallet and it's non-custodial wallet, then you naturally what comes with that is you have to be tech savvy to not lose what you have, right? Others don't have the key to your wallet. So I think that's a big risk from a user. I mean, that's going to get better over time, I think. Just, think of like insurance policy or different ways to cover that risk from a user perspective. But then also if you're a company that's trading or betting on the market, that there's a whole trading strategy needs to be developed to hedge the risk. Not much different from hedge funds, how they manage their risk, and it's just a very high velocity market. Things are moving very drastically. So if you're a speculative trading company, then yes, you'll be subject to more risk than if you're a long-term, long only or long-term investor, such as macro strategy, for instance. So I think there are different ways, yeah, but overall it is still, approach with cautions, and definitely don't bet everything on it. It's not an investment advice from me, but it's just
Great, thanks. Interesting perspective to hear. Thank you.
Yeah.
Jack?
Yeah, I just had a couple questions. You mentioned that you started out at Goldman in sales and trading. I guess to start with, I was just curious, what products did you trade or were working with? And then from there, what skills that you developed in this program helped you there, and what things do you think we could do to prepare ourselves if we're interested in institutional trading that's outside of this program that would be helpful?
Yeah. I worked mainly with the fixed income desks. So think about government-backed securities, the mortgage-backed securities, and corporate bonds, and all the hedging, options and exotic trading desks. So everything that comes together. I feel like that part of trading desks is shrinking over time. To be completely honest, a lot of traders are being replaced with robots, essentially. So a lot of more e-trading now. I think the type of skills, I feel like you have to just develop a very holistic macro market view to be able to kind of trade on this type of product. But I don't see the direct link from maybe some of the math statistic background that you've acquired through this program, but you pretty much have to kind of show that you have the quantitative skills and background to get into the position, and then from there there's a lot of more just the on the job you have to pick up. Essentially, I think that would be my short answer to it. I was also kind of in a position where I feel like I worked on the trading execution team, but not necessarily the trader. So that kind of also gave me a little bit of I think leeway to shape my role over time. Is from for instance, I'll be working with the trading and the mortgage-backed security traders, but I'm really managing their books and their trading allocations and the specs and the pools. So have that analytical knowledge and background from this program was very helpful in helping that process. But it's not apples to apples, right? It's not a direct kind of what you learned from, for instance, the statistics you can just apply there. But it's always, I think Lehigh has a pretty good brand recognition in the industry. So once you get sort of the initial opportunities to interview and to engage in, there's a good chance. Definitely use alumni networks as well, right? To get those.
Yeah, so that was my follow-up. Like breaking into that, I assume you did a lot of LinkedIn messaging to alums at Goldman and other places on the street, like looking for some kind of role involved in S&T, or was it more of a like